This is 0650 GMT on Monday, the 1st of September 2025. This is continuing on the theme of examining the current observations and published concerns about corruption in government, by government. But our theme is actually extending into all governments of all colors and descriptions in the United Kingdom, including corruption in the local councils, corruption in the regional organizations like the Greater London Authority, and of course, corruption in Parliament by parliamentarians, and of course, in the actual contents, bias of the mainstream so-called media. One of the things that we world exclusively actually highlight in the context of our concern about the corruption in Britain is the bankrupt slogan of British left. The British left is not ever seen or heard to even recognize the ongoing, persistent corruption in society at all. And I include the likes of Paul Foot, the deceased socialist worker member who last worked for the Daily Mirror, and before he passed away, was cited as a campaigning journalist many times during his career. Now, Paul Foot was also, his biography says that he was born in Palestine. It's an insult because Paul Foot was not a Palestinian, despite the fact that he was probably born in Palestine, because he was born in Palestine to a family of imperialists. Now, despite the fact that the British left does organize various events and shows about Palestine, the main organizers remain racists and essentially anti-Palestinians, which is why, despite their displays and exhibitions of solidarity with the Palestinians, the left in Britain has remained bankrupt, morally bankrupt, politically bankrupt, ethically bankrupt, because none of the left actions, none of the British left's actions, or the Western left's actions, allegedly in solidarity with Palestine, has resulted in any of them losing their careers whatsoever. So I go back to the theme of the British media about corruption in Britain, and I say the same thing, that the media has intermittent, very irregular references to the facts of corruption, but it doesn't have express, dedicated campaigning coverage against corruption and against corrupt councils, against corrupt government, against corrupt parliament. So, to use a phrase, toothless. The British left is toothless about Palestine, as is the British media toothless about corruption in government, corruption in parliament, and corruption by other parts of the media itself. So going back to Angela Rayner, And as I was saying about Paula Manzilauddin being promoted, I had to continue to do some technical things. That's why that particular edition, previous to this one, was interrupted. Manzilauddin was promoted at the expense of the Bangladeshis in Tower Hamlets. And Manzilauddin did her best or her worst to promote herself at the expense of the Bangladeshis in Tower Hamlets prior to her being given the membership of the House of Peers during Gordon Brown's regime. Now, since she became a member of the House of Peers, Paula Manzilauddin's name and notoriety has only been registered and recorded as being a thief and a crook. Now, this is not something that is exceptional. All the promoted kind of post holders patronized by the state, patronized mainly by the Labour Party, but also by the Conservatives. The patronized occupants, individuals typified by Paula Manzilauddin, have ended up being exposed as crooks. The second one, in terms of the frequency in the news or references, is of course the occupant of the corrupting post of mayor at the expense of the people of Tower Hamlets. Luther Rahman, who was officially condemned by the election commissioner in a ruling published on the 23rd of April 2015. Now, between Paula Manzilauddin and Luther Rahman, there is absolutely no difference. So much so that Luther Rahman, when he was appearing before the election commissioner Richard Morey, then QC, now KSC, in 2015, just before the ending of the inquiry by Richard Morey, called Paula Manzilauddin as a witness, character witness in defense of him, Luther Rahman. What a complete, absolute, idiotic thing to do. Because Paula Manzilauddin had already been exposed as a crook and a thief years before Luther Rahman called her as a character witness. Now that shows that the Luther Rahman, let's say, cabal was as idiotic and stupid as Paula Manzilauddin was corrupt and ignorant and shameless. Because during the proceeding, at which point Paula Manzilauddin appeared in support of Luther Rahman as a good person, she was immediately brought down by the other side, the people who had accused Luther Rahman of electoral corruption, etc., who cited that Paula Manzilauddin was a crook, proven crook and a thief. That completely demolished Luther Rahman's particular stance as based on Palauddin's credibility. There was no credibility at all. It confounded the corruption and dishonesty that were labeled by Richard Morey in his final report on the 23rd of April 2015. So Paula Manzilauddin and Luther Rahman are not different. They are too similar to each other. And yet, one of the outlets that has been allegedly reported as being very popular with the Bangladeshis in the United Kingdom, the Channel S. Now, Channel S originally started publishing just 2 years after the KhoodeelaarTVChannel campaign began, the campaign defending the community against the Crossrail Hole plot, as Sylhet Channel. Now, the reason why they called it Sylhet Channel was because of the predominant Siloti-speaking population from Bangladesh background in the United Kingdom. And that was the strength, and that demographically is the main characteristic of the Bangladeshis in the United Kingdom, historically and demographically and factually. But because of the stupidity and corruption inherent in the personality of the people, collectively responsible for the channel that was called Sylhet Channel, they caved in to the corrupt anti-Siloti lobby that abused their corruption and stupidity and prevailed on them and convinced them that they should drop the word Sylhet Channel. And so therefore they dropped the Sylhet word, Sylhet, and abbreviated themselves into S, Channel S. Now, Channel S, as the contents of the broadcast confirm over the years, is the slave channel. And we shall be continuing on the slave channels and mental slavery in due course, obviously. Going to the main core of the theme that we are doing in this series of broadcasts about Angela Rayner's corruption and dishonesty and idiocy over her personal housing arrangements, and the fact that the Labour Party, various wannabe leaders of the Labour Party are behind, according to the Daily Mail today, Monday, the 1st of September, 2025, for the row that is getting expanded around Angela Rayner's sleeves. That collection actually shows the limits of ethics and morality that can be exercised over the British ordinary democratic institutions and post holders. There is nothing, absolutely nothing in this country that actually makes the holders of office who are greedy and corrupt and stupid all at once, or parts of these weaknesses manifest in their particular behavior. So in the early 1990s, when the now deceased rapist Al-Fayed bribed the Conservative MPs, etc., especially Neil Hamilton, and The Guardian broke the story, and The Guardian's breaking of the story about the John Major regime seriously undermined the John Major regime and led eventually to the Conservatives losing the election in 1997 to the Labour Party. Now, I'm not starting a diagnostic analysis of what Tony Blair, the war criminal, Tony Blair did. I shall do in due course, but not in this particular edition. What happened as a result of the Guardian breaking of the Al-Fayed bribing of the Conservative MPs in Brown Envelope, etc., has not been followed up, even by the Guardian. Not even by the Guardian itself, when it came to other regimes and other frontages. For example, when Tony Blair's government or regime was caught bribing the Formula One businessman Eccleston, the Guardian didn't play the leading role in breaking that story. And in the case of the corruption and electoral malpractices by Luther Rahman in Tower Hamlets, the Guardian actually colluded all the time, all the years that Luther Roman was imposed from the initial election in 2010 until he was ousted on the 23rd of April 2015, the Guardian in various ways colluded and was complicit with Luther Roman and his cabal of crooks. So we shall be continuing on this theme in later editions. This is 7:05 GMT on Monday, the 1st of September 2025.